Oh. Hey friend, how are you?
I'm having some family challenges. In fact, I might have to hop off abruptly if my sister calls in. I have a relative that I may have an opportunity to say goodbye to that I wouldn't normally have an opportunity to say goodbye to because of my location. So we'll see what happens. But other than that, I am alive. I am well. I am blessed beyond belief, and I am mostly happy.
That's good to hear. I've noticed that the universe is not listening to my request, that I want things to just be calm for a little while. I don't want to lose anybody else. I just want things to be calm. But you know what? Doesn't always happen the way you want. So
It's actually so true.
So yeah, we're not our usual jovial selves tonight, and you'll see why when we talk about. See, I'm getting emotional. I was talking to my friend before this call, and I said, I'm really not looking forward to doing this show. And she said, well, you don't worry about whether you cry, because you cry on every show, so it won't be anything new. But before I
was that Mary that said that?
No, actually it was Deb. Because she's just been through a marathon. She's just been through a marathon of watching all of our episodes, so she knows.
Thank you, Deb.
Sweet. Isn't that? We have good friends. Anyway, so before we get on to that, we'll just start. And you want to start?
I'll start. I'm LaShonda.
And I'm Angela, and we're a Black woman and a white woman walk into a bar. And we're so glad to be doing I think this is 15, right?
This is 15.
That's crazy talk.
We're technically adolescents.
That would be about right, which means I play too many games online and don't do enough work. My friends used to say, when I was in college, my friends would say, you're really more like a teenage boy than like, yeah, it's kind of true. Anyway, so you want to do our toast tonight, LaShonda?
Yes. One of the things that I've been following MSNBC. I've been using MSNBC for most of my news coverage for the past few months because there are a few shows that I really, really, really love on that network. And one of those shows is Cross. Now it's escaping my brain. Tiffany Cross is amazing. I love her. I love the fact that there are references in her show that are so culturally appropriate for me as someone who has lived through and who enjoys being immersed in hip hop culture in the ways that I'm able to do that for myself. And I remember the time that I realized that that's one of the reasons I loved hers, which is she said, "Move, Mitch, get out the way." And I lived and died all at the same time. So this toast of a seltzer water with a tiny amount of bitters and some Meyer lemon juice is for Miss Tiffany Cross, who is dope, who is professional, who asks all of the questions, and who will check you if she needs to in the most professional way with a smile. So cheers to Tiffany Cross.
Cheers, Tiffany. I am toasting today with my POW cocktail, which is plain old water. and I too, I'm listening to MSNBC. I've been listening to MSNBC pretty much nonstop for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
So since you're doing a shout out, I'll mention my favorites, which are Ari Melber and
I like Ari.
Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid. Those are my favorites.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like them too. They're good.
Yeah. So we don't really have this planned out because LaShonda and I never really plan these things out too much because we think that's where the magic comes in. Is the whole point of this is when we used to be able to hang out together, and we used to hang out a lot, and we would just chat about whatever. So, but tonight we're talking about sexual assault, and There I go, getting choked up already. So yeah, this is a hard one, but it's important. And the reason that we're doing this show is because I just looked at this statistic. A person is sexually assaulted in the United States every 73 seconds. And those, obviously mostly women, but not all women. A high percentage of are women of color. Young women are profoundly impacted by this too.
Trans women are also impacted by this.
That's a huge, thank you so much, LaShonda, for remembering that. Yeah, because that's a huge issue. And the reason that we're bringing it up now is, I gotta take a breath again. And this is exactly, the fact that I'm so emotional is exactly why we need to talk about it, because I didn't think I would get this emotional. You think that, you're past it at a certain point, but I don't know that a person ever does get totally past it. Sorry. I will just say that I was sexually, thank you, Shonda. So let me just get it out. It'll be easier. I was sexually assaulted during the summer. It was in June, and it was with somebody, as most cases of sexual assault are, or a high percentage of them are. It was somebody that I knew. It was somebody that I considered a friend. Obviously, I no longer do. And it was in my home. And, I didn't tell anybody for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, because I thought, this is just, I kind of talked myself out of it being sexual assault. And because I knew the person. And I have to tell you, I mean, LaShonda, you know that I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. I'm a former therapist. Like, I, of all people, should know better. But when it happens to you, it's a whole different thing. And I didn't tell anybody, and I thought, I'm just going to feel crappy about this for a couple days, and then I'll move on. But I didn't move on. And it was about 2 weeks into it, after it happened, that I thought, I'm not getting better. Like, I'm feeling worse. And as LaShonda can also testify to, I'm the kind of person that I rely deeply and heavily on my friends. So the fact that I didn't talk to anybody about it that kind of told me, okay, something is wrong here. So I talked to a couple of friends, and I think I told 3 people initially, one of them being LaShonda, and they said all the things that I needed to hear. But it's just the reason that, let me just say, the reason that we're doing this now is that I've been thinking about doing this for a while. And LaShonda said, I got your back, whatever you need to do, we'll do it. And then I kept putting it off and putting it off. And the further away it got, the less I felt like I wanted to do it. I wanted to talk about it on this show. And then I thought about that, and I thought, that's, if I wait too much longer, I'm just not going to want to talk about it. And I didn't want that to happen, because because I'm still, even with the support of friends and professionals, I still feel some shame around it. Why did I invite him over? Why didn't I kick him out sooner? Why did I consider myself a very good judge of character. How could I have not have seen that he was this kind of person? How could I not know that? And I thought, you know what, this is not my shame to carry. And I want other people to understand that too, that, if this has happened to you, it's not your fault. And while I might believe that in my head, I'm realizing I don't totally believe it. And I know I'm not the only person that feels that way. So anyway, so blah. Anyway,
no.
I want to thank you, LaShonda, because you were such a big support. I mean, you know, you always have been, but you know, having people to talk to is huge. It's hugely important, and you know.
I would agree with you. I've had quite a few friends who have gone through this. I have been sexually harassed, but never physically assaulted, and I'm very grateful for that. And when I think about it, it just makes me want to make sure that all of my knives are sharpened and that I have a very good shot. Because I just, it makes me so angry that any person would take advantage of another person that way. And again, this is about violence. So these people are violent people and should be treated accordingly. And, you know, I can only hope that the universe matches the energy that they have given to you in that regard, and to other victims as well.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
I think it's interesting because when you talk about being angry, all of the people that I've told about this incident have been so angry on my behalf. But and I know if it was somebody else telling me that story, I would be the same way. I would be livid. I'd be like, let's go find the guy, you know. But yeah, that's why I know that I'm not past this yet, because there's a part of me when I hear you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm still not really angry. I'm, you know, I have moments of being angry, but and I know that means that I haven't gotten in touch with all of my anger about it, because I believe that always under anger is huge and profound grief. If you've got rage, it's because you have a reason for having rage. And so it's scary, you know, it's scary to go there. But I just, again, I so appreciate the support of my friends, and I will just, of course, would never say any names, but I've been surprised by how many people know people in the Brooklyn sense. I mean, you know, which, and the only reason I bring that up,
which is a way to take care of things.
Well,
a legitimate way, if I might say so.
That's what I wanted to say, because, you know, when I had so many people say, do you want me to take care of this? And I'm like, what do you mean? I know people who can take it. And you know what made me, what I thought about after my initial, you know, white woman raised in the suburbs brain thought, oh, well, see, this is what happens when a community of people who are not protected by the people that are in charge of protecting people. This is what you have to do. You have to develop your own system of taking care of things, you know? And
exactly.
You know,
exactly. I remember an incident where someone who had perpetrated a serious wrong against a friend, we were in a public setting, that person came in, you know, proceeded to socialize like everything was fine. And I spoke to someone that I knew there who was also friends with this friend. And I let them know that that presence wasn't welcomed. And that individual, I know this is all very vague for you people, but like, we really can't, you really don't say names in this scenario. Right. And so that individual and a couple of that individual's friends went and spoke to said person, and said person left on their own volition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Brooklyn way.
The Brooklyn way. Now, I had one person say to me, okay, after this person clarified who the person was who assaulted me, said, we are not speaking about this again. And the reason we are not speaking about this again is I'm going to keep my eye out for this person. And there needs to be no connection between anybody now. It's, as far as you're concerned, we've never had this conversation and we will never discuss it again. And this person wasn't saying, I don't want to, but this person was saying, that's it, because we need as much distance as possible. And
say no more.
Yeah. And my response when people kindly offered to do that for me was no, because I don't want, and a couple people said, why are you trying to protect this person? I said, I'm not trying to protect them, I'm trying to protect you. But this is just, it sucks that we even are having to have this conversation.
The fact is that though, especially in certain settings, folks have wives, daughters, friends, nieces.
Right. Right.
They don't want a repeat situation, because that's when the trouble really starts. Yeah. I mean, not really starts. That's when the trouble spreads. Mm-hmm. And if there is a spot on the apple that appears to be rotting, what do? You take off the rotten part.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And so, I've definitely seen people just be spoken to, and that was enough to keep them away. Right. There's all sorts of methods.
Right. Which would be the ideal outcome as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this has been so hard for me because I don't, all the stuff you have to go through in terms of like, who do I go to the police? It was interesting after this happened. And initially, when I would talk to my close circle of friends about it, and I really didn't want to go to the police. Of the men that I told, they encouraged me. Of the women I told, they completely understood why I didn't want to, because things haven't changed that much. And I actually did talk to a police officer who I know in the neighborhood, and he confirmed for me through his comments that things haven't changed that much for women reporting sexual assault. And it's still not a system that in any way, shape, or form protects or favors the victims. Yeah. Which is infuriating. But
I'll never forget being harassed on a train alone in the middle of the night, traveling to Barcelona. Excuse me. I spent a year at Oxford, and I was going to visit a friend who was studying in Granada, Spain, and had a place for us to stay in Barcelona, and was like, why don't you come to Barcelona for Christmas? And I was like, by hook or by crook, I'll be there. And I was a broke student. So it literally was me going to the student travel agency and being like, I need to get there for as little money as possible. And they were like, well, don't you want? And I was like, no. Give me a seat on anything moving. So it was a train to a hovercraft to a train to a separate train to another train. It was like a 24-hour traveling period, literally. Like, it was so messy. But I was like, I can follow this itinerary. It's fine. I was like, I'm smart enough. I can figure this out. And I did. But during one of those periods, I had fallen asleep. I, did the things that they tell you to do. Right? They tell you to do all these crazy things when you're a single woman traveling alone, how to stay safe. And so they're like, sit near families. They're like, travel with, keys or something in your pocket, and this, that, and the other thing. And incidentally, Oxford, our program at Oxford had issued us these air horns. The sound that you hear in football stadiums, that right. I had one of those. They're terribly loud. Like they can actually inflict pain. So yes, so I had this air horn in my pocket. So I'm lying down on the bench. You know, it's like one of the, it's literally like a small compartment. And then there's a sliding door. And so you slide that door open to come in and also to exit. So I'm lying on one side of that thing. I wanted to leave the other side open because that's what you do. So I'm lying on my side. I figured another person was unlikely to get on at that point, but someone did. And that person sat across from me. And then I felt them sit at the edge of my feet. And I realized it must have been a guy, just based on what I could see from the size of his feet and the clothing. And I pretended to be asleep. I sort of shifted to put my hand in my pocket where the air horn was. And he put his hands between my legs. And I pulled the air horn out of my pocket, pointed it in his direction, and pressed the button as hard as I could. He got up and ran. Everyone's awake now. People are wondering what the hell's going on. I spoke no Spanish. And so, you know, no one, they weren't particularly helpful. They were like, well, you know, false alarm, whatever. I tried my best to explain what happened. One of the people next to me, they were like, oh, you know, this is what happened. And they were sort of translating for me. And he left his wallet and all these other things there. So they knew who he was. So that, you know, and did it make me leery about traveling by myself? A little bit. It just means that I mean mug a little bit more, you know, and also that I don't fall asleep in a situation like that. And also that if I need to travel, I will not be taking the cheapest accommodations available. Not that this doesn't happen in other places, but if I were in a situation where I were on a plane, then it's a little bit less likely because while you're in close quarters, there's also people monitoring the whole situation. Mm-hmm. So you won't find me backpacking anywhere. Sorry, no. I'll be hopefully riding in first class, but if not, coach.
Business class.
Yeah, it's messed up. And there was another incident during that trip where I guess the person mistook me for somebody that I was not, dressed in baggy jeans and a coat and a giant backpack. I don't know. But luckily I did know a little bit of French and I was able to move that situation along and away. But yeah, it's just, it's pathetic, you know, people who feel like anything is an invitation to commit sexual violence against someone. It's just, it's horrible. And it's something that America needs to really deal with a little bit differently than they have been. You know, I promise you, if folks were getting chemically castrated without sedatives, that some of this would stop.
I would think so. I mean, there's a couple things. There's the issue of power over, and you know what do people do and when, you know, in ancient times and even today, we haven't changed all that much. When you want to take over an area, a territory, is you rape the women. You know, it's like it's a way of saying we you know, we own this place now, and it's disgusting. And then there's also just the objectifying of somebody. I don't get, and I think that's the hardest, the most difficult part of this for me was because I've played it over in my head a bazillion times, like, you know, did I have was there an opportunity that I could have kicked him out, and there were, you know, but and I'm like, why didn't I do that? And then I realized it's because there was up until a certain point, I kept thinking, okay, this guy knows me. He's a friend. If I just have to if I can just make him understand that that what he's doing is not okay. Like, I can still connect to him because he's my friend. Like, I just have to find a way to connect to that. And because I couldn't get my head around, how can somebody who I know, who I consider a friend, be doing this to me? And then there was a point where I realized he had no interest in me as a person. Like, I had ceased to be a person to him. I was not his friend. I was not even, there was some switch in his head that happened that he didn't give a shit about me. And I could be appealing to him, till the end of time, and he was not going to see me as a person. Like, all I was an object. And at that moment, I realized I'm in trouble here, because I can't talk my way out of this. And he's also very large, very strong. And so, yeah, it's what I still struggle to get my head around is how people can. I mean, I just don't understand humans' cruelty to other humans in any way, in a general sense.
No, but as a man, you must be brought up to carry yourself and your strength in a certain way and to not exploit it, because that comes back, right? That comes back in jailhouses, that comes back in prisons. It becomes a never-ending horrible cycle of sexual violence. And I really think it's important for men who have men as friends to explain this to them, and to talk about it amongst themselves. Yeah. We talk about this. I don't know that they do all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sort of like, well, I'm not a rapist. And it's like, but your friend over there might be. And even if he's not, this is something that you all should have a conversation about, because it affects how women see both of y'all. If we don't know you. If we don't know you, I'm like, firstly, give me my space.
If you don't do anything, it's the same way. It's a similar thing to not calling out people's racism. If you don't do that, you might not be a perpetrator, but you're an enabler, and you hold some culpability.
It's funny, even yesterday morning, just the way that I respond to folks, even close to my space. I was prepping myself to get out of the car. And this dude comes walking up, and he's clearly on the phone. And he stands a little too close to my car. I lock the doors, and I shot him a look like, what?
I've seen that look. I've seen that look.
I was like, do you want to be under these wheels? Because that's what's going to happen. I was like, don't stand this close to people's vehicles, especially if they're in them. And if you're on the phone, you need to be a little bit more focused, because this is an active parking lot. People are driving around. You want to get hit? Like, what are you doing? And why are you this close to me sitting in my vehicle? Yes, there's, a barrier there. But I was like, let me get my keys back in this ignition real fast, because I was like, absolutely not. I was literally I was getting the mask, the first mask, the second mask, and then I see that. So I lock the doors, key in the ignition, and I'm just watching and waiting.
Yeah. So what happened?
And I also needed him to know that I'm looking right at him. Like, I'm looking at you. I see you. I can describe you now. I mean, and granted, this is, like I said, an active parking lot. Like, it was a Sunday mid-morning at Target. It wasn't like 8 a.m. At 8 a.m., anybody who's walking around the parking lot, I'm going to drive around to avoid them. I don't do that. That's not a thing. But at this part of the day, it was starting to get a little bit busier. I was literally running in there to get like orange juice to come back home, but man, but that's knowing that this is the experience with certain men. This is why we behave a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is why we have to behave a certain way in public.
Right. Exactly. And I wanted to say, and I'm struggling with whether to tell this story or not, because I don't want people to, I don't want to sound like I'm, I don't know. Let me just tell it and then I'll explain why I'm hesitant. But I think LaShawn and other people who know me know this about me, but people who don't know me very well might assume, because I think most people think I'm a nice person. But I don't want people to think that I'm a pushover, because I am not. And I've been in experiences where I've had to take care of myself, and I can do that. So, but
you don't have to qualify that though, because you're a grown-ass woman.
But that's the thing I'm struggling with, because I don't want to feel like I'm trying to say, but I don't, the reason I'm saying this is I'm saying this to other people who have been victims of sexual assault. Like, you don't have to justify how you are. You should expect to be treated respectfully and to be listened to. And when you say no, it means no. But yeah, I mean, I think that I do feel that I do feel that men have a responsibility. I agree with you 100%. Men have a responsibility to talk to other men about this. And because, there is a tacit approval of men being bullies towards women that I see all the time. And that's where it first needs to put a halt to it, is that men, I'm challenging you right now. You got to talk. If you see that behavior, you need to say, that's not appropriate. That's not cool. Because every time a guy says, oh, come on, you look so pretty when you smile. Every time a guy says,
girls,
like they buy you a drink and then that means that you have to be available for a conversation with them. It's this very subtle gaslighting kind of behavior that if you say no to it, then you're called a bitch. But it's subtle, but it's there. It's like, if I don't do what you want me to do, then if I don't play along by your rules, then I'm a bitch. Well, okay, I'll be a bitch then.
Listen, there was one time I was in one of the neighborhood establishments. I don't remember who was working that night, but it was someone that knew me well enough. And this notorious character, he looks at me, he goes, you come over here now and talk to me. I buy you a drink. And I just sort of looked and I was like, he's talking to somebody. It's like, no, you. And he starts pointing at me and I was like, it's like, you come here, you talk to me. And I was like, I don't know if you're aware, but I'm a grown-ass adult and I don't want to talk to you. So I will be sitting where I am sitting.
With full agency over what I do and who I talk to.
Girl, like, where does this man think he is? Oh, come on now. You had to know. And the person who was working that night sort of backed up like, I don't know how this is gonna go.
Well, see,
I was like, I would never throw a cocktail unless it were completely necessary. Right. And so long as he stays on that end, we're fine. We're fine. You can say whatever you want from over there.
Well, the thing that I wanted to say too is that, as you can see from what LaShonda's story here and things that I have shared, we can take care of ourselves, but the reality is that most, not all, but a lot of men are larger than a lot of women, and they're stronger. And that's just the reality. And I don't have the upper body strength or what, to take somebody out. And I would prefer not to carry a weapon with me if I don't have to. So, so there's a point, there's a point where I feel like, man, you gotta fucking step up here. I mean, I just, and I know, and I have to be fair, because I have had some guys say to me, when I brought up this topic in conversation, well, but when I've offered to walk a woman home, she gets mad at me. She goes, I can take care of myself. And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that this stuff is easy. It's this gender stuff is complicated, but err on the side of being helpful, and but the best thing that guys can do is talk to other guys.
Also offer to walk her to her door.
Right.
Not necessarily like, can I walk you to your building?
Well, see, that's where it
more
gets
specific.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't mean that you're coming in.
Right. Yeah.
Like, be communicative. Be a fucking grown up.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll tell you, there are a couple of people though that I would never approach that way. All of them are folks that I've known in Brooklyn that have made efforts. And I've just been like, I'm really good friends with your wife though. So no.
Yeah.
Like, can you just not be a scumbag?
Yeah.
And that's and that's the out, because they are larger people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I don't want to put myself in the situation where I need to figure out what I can grab to stab that person or do something crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah. Nor do I.
So this is why it's a wild and crazy thing. It's also why I won't. People are like, "Are you going to buy a house?" I'm like, never. Me buy a house? Why? I'm not about that first floor life. Condo, yes, absolutely. Sign me up. I'm actually looking forward to doing that. But I will not, as a single person, live on the first floor. Not without a couple of crazy Rottweilers, couple guns, and alarm system. And so that's not a house. That becomes a prison.
Yeah,
I don't want that for my.
Be forewarned. I said, be forewarned.
That becomes a prison.
Yeah.
And it also screams, try it to some people, Yeah. Like, we'll shoot the dogs and then how do we get into the house? How long, what's the police response time in this area? You know what I mean? Things like that. I'm like, no, I'd rather just live above the fourth floor so that you have to make an effort to get, no.
It's a shame that any of us have to be thinking about this stuff, but unfortunately we do.
We do.
And LaShawn and I both wanted to make sure that we say that, and we'll put some numbers up in the comments section underneath, but we want to make sure. Yeah, but we want to make sure that anybody who's watching this can contact us. You can look for us on Facebook, or you can leave some kind of message here. If we know who you are, just give us some identifying information. We'll get back to you.
Right. You can also message us on Instagram through the show page.
Yeah.
Drinks on Us Talk Show.
Yeah.
We're open.
We're happy to talk to you. And
even if you're not a woman,
exactly.
Either, if you're not a female identifying person, we know that people are sexual assaulted across the spectrum, and it's still not right. Sorry.
And targeted even more. Some demographics are targeted even more. And thank you.
And if for some reason you're unable to call together resources for assistance or whatever it is you need, we'll do our very best, because that's what part of this project is too. It's about reaching out to people and offering any assistance that we can.
And I want to thank you, LaShonda, not just for your support as my friend going through this, but also your willingness to have this topic on the show, because
absolutely, I wasn't looking forward to it, but I'm glad we did it, because you know, if you're listening and you think that we're just sitting up here men bashing, you missed the freaking point by miles.
Yeah,
by miles. We wouldn't be telling you this if we didn't love people.
Right.
If we didn't love people, we wouldn't say anything. We would sharpen our knives, and we'd make sure that we all had our guns ready. And the next time you came and knocked on the door, you would be staring down a barrel. So we are coming from a place of love, because if we weren't, this conversation would be very different and the news stories would be very different. Believe that.
And because we believe that we can do better. We can all do better.
Yeah.
You know, and we all have a responsibility to make it better.
It's true. Especially the folks across the spectrum who've been perpetrators, you know, do better, get therapy, fix yourself, you know.
That's, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And don't expect anybody, don't go to anybody that you've done that to and try and make amends with them. It's not their job to forgive you. It's your job to be better.
Yeah. Oh, my internet says my internet connection is unstable. Oh, there. Anyway, I know what's going on. But yeah, thank you, LaShonda. It's we're at our magic time. We always seem to end up at this point. We always we're going to try to have it around 30 minutes, and it always comes in around 40, 45, no matter what we do. So I guess that's our sweet spot.
We're 45-minute girls.
Yeah.
That's how we roll. 45 minutes. We need 45 minutes to get warmed up, you know.
Yeah.
This could be a 3-hour show where we took it, you know, but you know, on a video situation, it's not ideal to have people jumping in. Right. But yeah, feel free to talk to us in our comments, talk to us on Instagram, talk to us individually if, you know, if you're someone that needs any sort of help with this. Neither of us, I'm not a therapist. Angela is.
I used to.
Which I don't know why I forget about that, but yeah. Angela's actually licensed.
Because I'm too bossy, that's why. The therapists aren't supposed to tell you what to do, and I'm happy to tell people what to do. I'm happy to give you my advice. So anyway, so everybody be safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And have a great week.
I'm LaShonda.
I'm Angela.
And we are a Black woman and a white woman walk into a bar.
All right. Love you guys.
Talk to you soon, love.